beauty in AI is that it's going to allow us to have access to information at a faster rate, at a more real-time scenario. But it's also going to allow us to automate some processes that we don't need a human interaction in. But there's going to be some places where it's going to refine the way we do things because it's going to expose things that we didn't even know as humans, right? And I think that is somewhere that I look at this as an exciting piece.
Hello and welcome to a whole new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host, Jeremy D'Souza. And today we have got someone amazing with us on the show. We have a digital futurist with us. But before I introduce you to our amazing guest, allow me to quickly introduce you to Engati. Engati is the world's leading multilingual no-code chatbot platform available across 14 channels with 30,000 bots created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as a top platform by Inc.com, TechWorld, CIO, Good Firms, and many others. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, and the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 300,000 visitors annually. And now for our amazing guest. Brian Fanzo is a digital futurist, virtual keynote speaker who translates the trends of tomorrow to inspire change today. His customized and personalized programs show real-world stories and examples of forward-thinking people and businesses. He teaches companies of all sizes how to leverage technology in real time, in order to engage their customers at the right time. Brian has a gift for bringing people together online and offline, and he's worked in 76 countries, highlighting his passion for change, collaboration, and technology. Brian, we are really, really thrilled to have you here on the show with us.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Okay, let's dive into this, Brian. So my first question to you is, can you share an example of a forward-thinking company that's moving at a rapid pace because of the incorporation of technology?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because I think there's a lot of companies that are going through, a digital transformation in the sense of, integrating technology in different parts of their company, different parts of their customer journey. And then you're also seeing, companies evolve, I think, during, especially the last couple of months here in 2020, where we've been forced to evolve, right? For me, I work with a lot of brands and I spend a lot of time convincing them to integrate technology and do those things. And the last couple of months, we've been kind of forced to do that. And one of the companies that actually might be a little bit surprising on their integration is Domino's Pizza here in the US, as they've not only embraced, a new branding, a new model, even like a new mantra, but their mobile app, they integrated technology to where you can see the pizza in every step of the process. So they're putting the cheese on the pizza, they've added it to the oven, they're doing the inspection to make sure it's up to, to quality. And to me, this is one of those things that they were doing it before anyone else had done it. And now we're starting to see some other restaurant chains doing it, where we're seeing Chipotle. If you order Chipotle, you can do a very similar thing. But for me, like thinking about it from like a pizza, we've ordered pizza pretty much the same way for years. And the idea of integrating technology to not only change the customer experience, but to give the customer access to maybe information that we never knew we even wanted, right? Like I never thought like, man, I really wish I knew when my pizza was going in the oven. But if you think about it, when a pizza arrives cold, you're like, I wonder how long ago they cooked it. And now they've integrated that technology. So Domino's might be a surprising answer, but one that definitely impresses me.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because one of the things that you're thinking when you're ordering food is like, you're not thinking, why don't I have my pizza in front of me right now? You're literally thinking, where is my pizza? Where is it? So they kind of
and if you think about it, if you use technology to solve simple problems like that, it's pretty powerful, right? Like, how do we let people know, exactly where it is? And we see that with like our mail, right? Like I think before, when you ordered something, it would say 3 to 5 days shipping. Now, if you want to look at it, it'll tell you which truck it's on, where it's at. So I think we see that innovation in certain industries, and I think it's fun to see it taken into industries that maybe we didn't expect it to be there.
Yeah, it's really reassuring. Brian, in your opinion, how important is it for companies to keep up with the pace of continuously evolving technologies? And how can companies embrace this way of change?
So for me, as a digital futurist, as someone that loves the bleeding edge, I host a podcast called FOMO Fans, which stands for the fear of missing out. Like I love the bleeding edge. And for a long while, I wanted to help convince people or help people embrace their FOMO. And then I realized not everyone likes living on that bleeding edge of the fear of missing out and trying the latest and greatest. So I'm a big believer that you don't have to be the first adopter. You don't have to always be the early adopter. But it's extremely important to be marketing and working your business where your customers are today while listening for where they're going tomorrow. And the way that I like to kind of paint that picture is that we need to make sure that the things that we're doing today set us up to innovate tomorrow. Because a lot of times, if you look at the cloud computing technology, I worked in the data center space for a long while, and our company, a startup, was working with brands to go from what we would consider a traditional data center technology into the cloud. And a lot of companies weren't ready to move their information into the cloud. They didn't understand the security and the benefits. But the companies that really set themselves up for success, it wasn't that they jumped into the cloud. They just started changing how they stored their data. They changed how they bought contracts or purchased software. And so that as they slowly started to integrate this innovation, this technology, then they were prepared to do so. Those that were like, hey, I'm not ready to go for the cloud, and they stayed doing things the same way they've always done it, when all of a sudden the cloud, now it's kind of silly. Like, we won't even think about not having everything in the cloud. But there are a lot of companies that all of a sudden were like, oh my gosh, I have to have everything in the cloud, and I have legacy systems with data that can't go to the cloud. I've been deploying new laptops to my employees, but I have no way of updating those laptops. I have to have them all send them back, right? So for me, I think it's more important to always be prepared for what's coming next, more so than having to be on that bleeding edge. So it's kind of it's a delicate balance. The example, one of the greatest examples for me, I think, is that Google was the 27th search engine. There was 26 other search engines that came before Google. And so it doesn't mean you have to be an early adopter, but there is something to be said about being in at that right time. And I think you can do that by making sure you're listening and understanding where you need to go tomorrow.
Absolutely. And yeah, you don't need to be the first one, but you can't really wait till like the end when you're gonna go bankrupt, you're gonna go the way of Blockbuster because you didn't decide to do something new. You got to keep up with the pace, right? Brian, where do digital strategies and evolving technologies meet? Is there an intersection where both of them can run in unison?
So to me, this is my goal. This is my mission in life, really, is to help brands see the synergy, for what I like to say, the synergy between innovation and humanity. I think we've got to a point where we hear this all the time, right? The pace of change is faster than we've ever seen before. And I would argue that it's not that it's faster than it's ever been before. We just have more choices than we've ever had before. So the speed is probably very similar to what it's been all these years. But the fact that we have more choices and our ability to adapt and embrace new technology is unlike anything we've ever had before, right? I remember, I worked for the U.S. government here, Department of Defense in the U.S. And one of the things that we worked on a lot was we would deploy these systems, and we would spend a year preparing the system and a year deploying it. And then the system would be good for 3 years with the technology that it had on it. And now we're deploying something, and the next month we're updating it. We're sending someone a link to download a new piece of software. And so that is extremely important. But we also have to remember that you can't be deploying technology for technology's sake. I think that's where we get into a very sticky problem, where we start throwing technology at problems that can't be fixed. And one of them, I think, is people, right? We often try to solve people problems with technology, and we've all done it, right? We're like, okay, my employees aren't collaborating, so I need to buy a collaboration tool. And we throw the collaboration tool out there, and no one's collaborating. We're like, man, we picked the wrong tool. And we go buy another tool, and we tell everybody to deploy it. We might even tell them they can't use their email, and we're mandating them to use it. And then still no one's collaborating. And then we take a step back, and we're like, what's the common variable? It's not the technology. It's that we haven't empowered our people to see the value in collaboration, because a collaboration tool makes it easier. It allows us to scale. It allows us to have data and access, but it's not going to fix that people problem where people don't want to share information or collaborate. So I think that's an important one. And I think the other piece of that also is that, with innovation comes risk. And oftentimes it also comes the ability to use innovation to do bad things, right? We hear, this is a big topic, especially in the world today. And I think we can't allow the people that misuse technology to stop us from taking the risk to innovate, right? Because bad people are going to do bad things and no technology is going to stop them from doing it. But if we look at technology and say, hey, let's set this up for success and let's not allow those that are using bad things to change how we deploy things or how we use things, that's where I think the magic is. That's how I think we move forward. But it's definitely something that we have to do with a strategy, and we can't, like I said, can't deploy technology for technology's sake. I think that's still a massive mistake.
You can't just deploy technology just because you heard that, oh, this is something like, really cool. It just came out. No, you need to have a reason behind it, right? Brian, what role does AI have to play in digital transformation of enterprises? What challenges do businesses face while implementing technology at such a large scale?
So I think AI, artificial intelligence, is a very interesting thing. One, because I think there's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding of what AI is. If anyone's using Gmail today and you see how quickly and how integrated your inbox is changed into filters and tabs, and you're getting labels, that is all using an AI technology in the back end that they've been using for many years. And so we hear things, with AI being, robots taking over the world or replacing our jobs. And when I look at it, I look at AI's, really the beauty in AI is that it's going to allow us to have access to information at a faster rate, at a more real-time scenario. But it's also going to allow us to automate some processes that we don't need a human interaction in. But there's going to be some places where it's going to refine the way we do things, because it's going to expose things that we didn't even know as humans, right? And I think that is somewhere that I look at this as an exciting piece. And my background, I worked 9.5 years in the government in cybersecurity, so I respect cybersecurity and privacy and understand the importance of data collection and that whole group. But I also think what AI is going to require us to do is ask questions about, why is this private? Why do we worry about these type of things? Because there's a lot of things that we've protected for 15 years that probably doesn't need to be protected anymore, right? The world has so much information. And so I look at that as one of the big glowing opportunities with AI. And another place I look at it for, from an opportunity for what we can bring together is the synergy of disconnected data, right? I was diagnosed with ADHD 8 years ago. And I remember first couple of years, they kept telling me I had to write a sleep journal. And I was like, I don't want to write a sleep journal. It just wasn't. And then I got an Apple iWatch, and I was like, can I just upload my watch data to you? And I had to sign 100 forms to approval. And I started uploading my watch data to my doctor. And it was cool because they were able to now to understand my sleep patterns, my activity. They were getting a lot more information. But what was still missing, and still missing in a lot of places when it comes to healthcare because of the data regulations, was, well, there's a lot of other data that I have out there that could be used with this watch data that could even take this a next level, right? And not only be able to do that, but what if they were able to take what my data was, right, and strip out my personal pieces of that, and then be able to put that into every person in their 30s that has ADHD, and now collect this data and start presenting doctors information in real time. I spent a lot of time talking about being vulnerable in ADHD, and I talk a lot about studying it. But for me, it's very frustrating because a majority of time I'm reading studies from 2016, 2014, and I think that's another area where I think AI is really going to have an impact as soon as we start allowing these different elements of data to be shared and really kind of be leveraged in ways we never imagined before.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be pretty interesting if instead of reading outdated stuff, you'd actually have updated stuff which is relevant to today. Another point which I really agree with you is that, yeah, it's going to get rid of a lot of monotonous tasks, but that's actually going to allow us the opportunity to do a lot of high level things which we didn't really have a chance to do before.
I couldn't agree more. And I think as humans, that's one of the things where, I always use this as a great example of one of the hardest things for a robot, a non-manned robot, to accomplish right now is to open a closed door. the physical mechanics of opening a closed door or even drink out of a soda can, right? And if you think about that, like, yes, robots can do a lot of automation. I actually, Universal Robots is a client of, is a customer of one of my clients. And I interviewed one of their founders 2 days ago, and they were talking about with social distancing and coronavirus, how in the manufacturing place, the robotic arms are becoming even more important. But it's also interesting because now, like, the quality control element of what a human's role is has drastically increased, right? So I do agree with you that the idea for us to get creative, us to use empathy and emotion, and even probably maybe even the most important, I think as businesses, we stopped listening. We started spending all of our time on technology and in technology, that we stopped having time to listen. And if we start using AI to automate some of these processes, I believe it's going to give us more time to listen. And I think that's where we're going to be able to make some really innovative strides.
Absolutely. That was very interesting, Brian. Brian, do you have any other technological thoughts that you'd like to share with the audience today?
So I think one of the things when we look at where we're at now, right, thanks to coronavirus and the pandemic that has impacted the world, we are in interesting times. We're being questioned everything that we've had to do, right? How we work, how we play. A lot of businesses that said they would never let their employees work from home, all of a sudden were forced to make their employees work from home, and now they realize, wow, we don't need to have these buildings and these overheads and all of these pieces. The thing that I like to stress, and I think this just comes back to my overall goal with that synergy between technology and humanity, is that just because someone's working from home, just because we're leveraging more technology, does not mean the human touch is less important or less valuable. And I would actually argue the more we integrate technology, the more we work from home and become remote learning, the more important it is to have offline events, the more important it is to bring people together in person. Zoom and these virtual video calls are beautiful. We're both in different parts of the world at the moment, and we're able to connect via technology. But there is something to be said about, okay, this is how we're going to work, and it's going to allow us to do some great things and live our lives. But it's also important to kind of take this a step further, because I think for me, like, my overall, when I look at like where I see all of this possibility, like, we should feel less alone. We should feel less disconnected. The suicide rate should be going down. Businesses should be able to empower employees to work smarter, not harder. And these are all things that are going to require us to have that beautiful balance of technology and humanity. So I challenge, as much as we continue to innovate, we also have to innovate in the ways that we, integrate human touch across our business.
Absolutely. Guys, you heard it right here on Engati CX. You heard it from Brian. Brian, where can the audience reach out to you?
Sure. So, the company I founded is iSocialFans, with a Z or a Z at the end. That's my username on every social network. I can almost promise you I'm on every network. I don't recommend that to all of my clients. I'm on every network so that I can help my clients decide what's best for them. So feel free to reach out to me on any of the social networks there. And then, my website with all of my virtual and technology learnings is brianfanzo.com. So brianfanzo.com. And I have two podcasts, one that's been around I'm on my 5th year, and one that's a new one. That first one I mentioned before, FOMO Fans, the fear of missing out. It's actually a solo podcast. I don't bring on any guests. It's about 30 minutes of myself talking about certain topics, things that I've discovered. And then my new podcast is called Press the Damn Button, which is the book that I'm finishing up writing. And it's where I interview different leaders from around the world on what buttons they've pressed in their life that have allowed them to get to where they've gone, what risks they've taken, what things they're doing. So if you're into the podcast world and you're looking for something new, check me out there. But I appreciate you having me on the show, and this is a fun conversation.
Yeah, it was amazing having you, Brian. Guys, Engati CX will be back with a new episode and a new expert really soon, so stay tuned. We'll see you around in the next one.